You start getting into effects and what makes you pick certain overdrives. You know, it's very subtle differences. I mean, you know, same with delays and it's that little difference.
But it's that last 10% that's everything. That's the inspiration factor. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly.
But to others, you know,
it depends on your ear too.
Deal.
If you've got a good ear, there's the hearing of it, but it's also how does it feel as well. You're tying those two things back together.
Yeah.
And a real pedal, like a Phase 90, versus something simulating it, it's just entirely different circuitry. It's play
just
there.
A different vibe in general.
Yep.
Different vibe in general.
It can be used, and you can get by.
Yeah.
But I know some guys that just, you know, they've been tube guys forever, and that's just what they're most comfortable with.
Yeah.
I mean, and it just sounds a certain way. It feels a certain way on, you know, when they're playing on stage.
But there's just moments where it just helps transcend. You know, it helps you. I don't know. You're ultimately looking to reach a place on stage. You know, where you're just completely lost in.
You lose yourself in the music.
And
you're not thinking. You're playing.
And it just feels so good, and when everything just comes together, and it's just that's what you. I mean, ultimately, that's what you're going for, is that space.
That's what I shoot for, as someone that mods or designs an amp. You know what I mean? Is to try to get it to the place that sonically it sounds great. It'll go into natural feedback on its own. You know, when you hold a note and swells into feedback. Right. The harmonics are really good. Everything is balanced from lows, mids, and highs. You know, you can use the EQ to tailor things more.
Yeah.
But then you can get that point where it's inspiring to play on.
Right.
That way, a player like yourself can go play live, and you can get into that zone, as I call it. Right. You know what I mean? Where you're not thinking about anything. You're just playing. You know, and that's a beautiful thing. It's hard to put into words, but. You know, bending and vibratoing should be easy. They shouldn't be like fighting, you know, the string to bend it and vibrato.
Yeah.
You know.
It's another thing that's difficult about being on in-ears and having your cabinets further away from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
it's a good
you don't have that speaker pickup.
You don't have the interaction.
Which is difficult. So it's that's what's great about playing with the Daisies, is that
you guys
not using in-ears. I'm right in front of my speaker cabinet.
Then the interaction from the speaker shooting it into the pickup, and you know all that happens.
A bit more
is great.
than what you want, but
that's where you have to control it. Right. When you're on tour, and a lot of people don't realize this, but when you go through big temperature and humidity changes from one day to the next, it feels different a lot of times on the guitars if you've got a lot of humidity in the air. I mean, how does that?
Your speakers sound different.
Yes, they do. Yeah. You got moisture, you know, weighing, slowing things down.
And the big thing, you know, we've discussed this quite a bit, is the electricity as well. Is huge. I mean, when you're traveling in Europe, and it doesn't matter how good your power conditioning is, it seems it's always.
I mean, 5 volts can make a huge difference on the AC line, more than most would think, you know.
And some nights it's great, some nights.
Maybe not so much.
Blow your stuff up. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Know this one.
Yeah. So that's difficult. But yeah, the humidity and it all affects the guitars. It's difficult.
You find is there any tricks that you have as far as the word tricks that you would use when it is hotter or more humid when you're playing live?
Bobby's really good with that stuff. My tech.
We were talking with him earlier, and he just knows what to do with the guitars at that point. And
my guitars play great consistently. And he knows what to look for as soon as we get into a venue.
That's cool.
Depending on what the climate is.
So a lot of guys don't realize that between a player and a tech, which in the pro world is what you have as a tech, you guys are a team.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I think more than people would realize. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that I've been asked a lot, well, which players have input? Like, how do you know what to do, you know, for this player versus this player, and how much of a role they played? In your case, you play a fairly large role compared to most. Some guys go, just do what you do, and just give me the amp and go make it sound good for me. And I go, okay, it might not be a lot to draw from, but all right.
Right.
But you've got a very specific idea about everything that you're looking for. I mean, we've done a lot of stuff over the years.
Yeah.
You know, different amps, many different kinds, vintage to, you know, medium gain to some higher gain. And, you know, you've always played a good role, I thought.
I totally trust your years though. So I mean, the best stuff that you've done for me, I think, is stuff that I've not been so involved in. You said, okay, just make it sound the best you can make it sound, and that's the stuff.
I remember we did the first time was a Marshall Jubilee. I remember that was the first time, and you're like, well, just do whatever you think is going to sound good for me. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
A little daunting because I'm like, I've seen you play.
And that's not
just seeing a minute's worth or less of someone playing and watching their hands, both of them, tells me volumes about pick attack, how they want, how immediate or not they want the amp to be, how fast it recovers, on the low, all those things.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, and did it all up, crossing fingers, arms and legs and toes when we sent it out.
That amp sounds fantastic, that Jubilee. And I've lent it to a couple different. I lent it to Todd Youth, and he was like, "Dude, this is the greatest Marshall I've ever heard."
Oh wow!
He just could not.
Those are big words.
And he's got a lot of Marshalls, but it's a fantastic sounding amp, and it's great for recording because it does something different. It's different to my other Marshalls.
Yeah, what you normally go for, I don't think that necessarily would want. It's just a good example of you going, just do whatever you want.
But yeah.
And, and then there was a few others, after that.
Oh yeah, there's been a ton. I mean, from the Fender, the Bassman 100 or...
Oh, right. That was it was a silver face Bassman 100 with a master volume.
Yeah.
In their stock form aren't so special.
Yeah, no.
And we ended up keeping the chassis, I think, and redoing everything else.
Yeah, and it's sort of Dumble-ish.
It's got kind of a Dumble-esque vibe.
But more Marshall-like. It's got a combination of the two. So that's a killer amp.
It's a lot of fun.
Fantastic amp. And
I almost hated to send that back.
But that one you told
or I didn't want to send it back.
You told me, said, go buy this. Just buy one off eBay. They're cheap. Buy it and send it.
Yep. You're like, a Bassman 100, really?
Yeah,
I'm like, I know, but it'll come out good,
Yeah, it's a killer amp.
Those are a lot of fun.
The Park Rockhead.
Oh, right, the rock one. Yep, that's right.
And that's a cool amp. It's got a real unique thing to it. But and
they're all very different from each other too. There wasn't and there's no disrespect intended here for techs that do this, but some guys will have their thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? That they do this one thing and they do it really well.
Yep.
And they'll put out models with variations on that. And that's been very common, and there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
I've just never looked at it that way. When I do things, it's different. Circuits altogether different.
But it's the same with players. Some players have their thing, their guitar and their amp.
They do that thing they're known for.
That's what they do. I've always liked a broader palette. I've always.
You're a very versatile player.
I've always I love Tellys as much as I love 335s.
And they feel so different to play on.
Oh yeah, and they bring out such different.
I mean, I've watched you play live, and you've got we go from a Les Paul. To a Telly, to a 335, to a Strat, and it looks seamless for you.
They all make you play differently, I think.
Yeah, very much so.
Because that's why I like different guitars. I've got Gretsch's, I've got Rickenbackers.
You got all kinds of great
stuff.
But
I mean, they all bring out different things.
That's why I wish I was a right-handed player instead of a left-handed player, just so I could play them a little, things a little more.
Yeah, well, look at Elliot Easton, man, left-handed player.
Great player.
Great collection.
Underrated, but great player.
Unbelievable player, but great collection of vintage guitars, left-handed guitars.
I know. I'd love to go to his house one day.
Yeah.
Spend a day or two just playing.
He's very versatile. And
people, that's why I said he's very underrated. I don't think people know how good he is. Or don't maybe realize by listening to just the cars how good he is.
Yeah, well, but his solos are constructed so well. I mean, on the car stuff. I mean, all the Cars records are all very meticulously recorded, I think, and really well put together from, the Roy Thomas Baker stuff and the Mutt Lange stuff and the... Rick Ocasek's an amazing producer.
Great writer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, but a great producer.
You had an amp that you bought off Mick Mars, right?
Right.
And I think you went through and tried
I tried a ton of his amps. He was
25 at least, I think you said.
There was probably played a good 15 or so. I mean, there was a lot there, but I played through all these Jose modded Marshalls. 800s and before. So there were a lot of there's some 2-input 70s, and and a bunch of 4 inputs. So I started going through them. I was with Baskin.
Oh, Jason Baskin.
With Jason Baskin.
Great guy. Great tech too.
One of the best techs in the world. And like what we were talking about, when you have a partner, how
when you're on the same page.
Jason and I, I wouldn't have to even look at him, and he'd be tweaking. He'd hear it before I would,
he's on it. That's
cool. And even we were really good together, and he's still one of my closest friends. We talk all the time. But we were even though he left me for Muse and a huge paycheck,
that might have factored in.
We went to Mick's house with Lloyd from Voltage Guitars, and in LA, and he had a bunch of medical bills, I think, and his wife had just left, and he was just like wanted to get rid of stuff, and
I got it.
And so Motley Crue hadn't done anything for a long
That's
time.
Right. This goes back 8 years.
This was like 10, 12 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And
so this is before. So you've had that for a while, since before.
Yeah, it was when I first joined Gino.
Okay.
And so we were listening through these different amps, and we're narrowing them down. We get to this one, we plug it in, I hit one chord, and it was just like the clouds parted and the angels sang.
It was truly that magical moment.
Yeah, and I looked up at Jason, and he was like, his mouth was open, like.
Well, I've got to have that one.
And I was like, wow. And we're both just like, holy shit, that's amazing. And Mick is like, yeah, that was my number 1 amp. That's the one I did the records with.
And that was on every Motley record, right?
I don't know. I mean, I know he said like all the like Girls Go Girls.
Oh, and Dr.
stuff
Feelgood.
like the Dr. Feelgood stuff, like that whole period. And it's like, yeah, it was the amp, and I was like, oh man, well, you got to keep that. That's your amp.
That's your go-to.
And he's like, look, man, I don't need it. He's like, if you think you're taking advantage of me, you're not. You're helping me out. I don't need it. And
very nice of him.
So yeah, and I was like, great, okay, I'll take it. And man, he has one of the greatest rock tones. I mean, for that heavy, huge. And his tone now is better than ever.
He's a very underrated player, I think.
Yeah.
For what people, when you think of Motley Crue, they dismiss him fairly quickly.
Tone-wise.
Tone-wise is great.
It's fantastic.
Great.
It's pretty crushing. Him and Cantrell both have incredibly crushing tones.
Yep, Jerry's got great tone.
Yeah.
Always has had great tone.
Yeah. Really hard. Great sound.
I see the angel